So fundamentals again, health
Mm-hmm.
savings account is the very best tax break that a physician has.
Mm-hmm.
Period. I mean, uh, tax deduction for putting the money in, okay, tax-free growth, and no taxes on qualified withdrawals. That's just about as good as it's going to get.
Welcome to the Physician Family Financial Advisors podcast, where physician moms and dads like you can turn today's worries about taxes and investing into all the money you need for retirement and college.
Hello, physician moms and dads. I'm Nate Reineke, certified financial planner and primary advisor.
And I'm Ben Utley, certified financial planner and service team leader here at Physician Family. So, Nate, we just had the holidays, and I recently took the lights down off my house, and I didn't get on a ladder, which is cool, because I have a new house. It's all one story, same size as the last one, but the last one had two stories. And when we moved to this house, I told my wife, I said, I'm not getting on ladders. I hear about too many people falling off ladders.
Mm-hmm.
And even though this house has an attic, we decided to take the stuff out of the old attic and not put it in the new attic because we have a garage. So, we had probably 240 square feet of dry storage in the last attic, and we had, those plastic totes that are about, I don't know, they're a foot and a half long, about a foot wide, and about a foot and a half deep. They're plastic, and you get them to store all kinds of stuff in. You get them at like Target or Costco, that kind of
Right.
place.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we had about 20 of those plastic tubs full of stuff, and that stuff was memorabilia, mostly from my kids and their lives. And we had dolls, and we had stuffed animals, and we had like little onesies that my kids wore, and we had some plastic rain boots that were shaped like ladybugs. And I mean, it just went on and on and on. All the great stuff that we had in there. We had all kinds of papers, medals, trophies, things that the kids had won. Uh, but there was also a bunch of stuff in there that the kids were kind of done with that we didn't want to store. And so over the course of 2 days, the four of us sat down on the floor and we went through these boxes like one item at a time. And it was like this huge stroll down memory lane of the last 20 years of our
Mm-hmm.
lives with the kids. And I gotta say, it was magical, really. It was almost like watching a home video of everything that had happened over the last 2 decades. And of course, my kids are in college now, right? So it
Mm-hmm.
was it was fun to savor those memories. Just going through. So the thing that struck me about it is the belongings that they valued, the things that they wanted to keep, had no financial value,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, it was papers. It was notes that they had written to mom, or notes that mom had written to them. It was pictures of family and friends. It was small animals, stuffed animals, a few toys, um, some ceramics, some handmade stuff that they had picked up, and a few things that we had picked up on vacations, but nothing of any value
Mm-hmm.
that is financial, so to speak. The thing that really hit me about this is many of those things represented experiences that they had had. And it brought it full circle that the things that make memories, the things that cause us to be able to reconnect with the good times in our lives, particularly with our families, are experiences. It's not stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we bought them some expensive stuff over time, iPhones, iPads, that kind of stuff. Uh, None of that was in there.
Yeah.
No electronics, no high-end art, no expensive clothing even. Just it was just things that reminded them of time that we'd spent together.
Yeah. Yeah. There's one thing that's still in Mateo's room, who's my 6-year-old, that I need to take away from him at some point. But
Yeah.
we went to Disneyland a couple years ago, and it's the only thing he has from Disneyland still, like the toys, the crappy toys they buy or whatever, that's all
Yeah.
thrown away. He has one thing, which is an old, like, or looks old because he's used it so much, broken down, like holes in it, ripped apart map of Disneyland
Wow.
that he held in his bed for probably 3 weeks after we got.
Wow.
Yeah, I want to save it, but he still wants it.
We had a little Disney memorabilia in our pile too.
Hmm.
Not a lot of it because we only went to two parks for half day apiece.
Yeah.
The thing that I found kind of most interesting, like the biggest item that one of my daughters kept was this bunny who's named Bunny, and Bunny is like, geez, Bunny's got ears that the wingspan is like 4 feet,
Yeah.
and Bunny sits like 2 or 3 feet tall, and there's no way Bunny would fit in a box to
Yeah.
go in the garage. So we took Bunny and put Bunny in the guest room.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Well, that's that's it's funny because when I go to Costco, I'm like, people still buying these totes. They always have these totes. But it's like those
yeah,
are the things that are in my garage too. Everything else gets kind of thrown out.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
exactly. Um, this as I was going through it, it kind of made me think like, what would happen if we hadn't saved these things? And it also made me think, what would happen if we had a house fire,
yeah.
right? Like, what's the one thing I would save, or how would I feel about losing these things? And it occurred to me that, the thing we still have is we have our relationship, we have each other. That's the
Hmm.
thing that we've invested in our family. But it also kind of is a segue into our first question today, which is about the recent fires that we've had down in Southern California. So
Yeah.
let's get that first question going.
Yeah. It's from an oncologist in Southern California. My mom had a home that was wiped out in the Palisades fires.
Mm,
Uh, I want to help her get back on her feet. Is there anything special I should know here? Yeah.
yeah,
Well, first of all, um, it's strange, but we do get questions like this in these moments, and it's hard as an advisor because you think like sometimes these people I'm just the money guy over here, but then you get calls about this kind of thing, and um, it's interesting. I don't know. I'm just reflecting on all the times that emergencies have happened, and we get these calls, and we're prepared to answer it. So
yeah,
we're here to answer it today.
yeah,
So, I mean, an oncologist in Southern California, if you're an established physician, you probably have an emergency fund, you know,
yeah.
and that doesn't have to be just for you. I
Hmm.
mean, obviously, you don't want to be handing out your emergency fund all the time, but this is clearly a case where you can help them out with some quick, fast, large amount of cash.
Yeah, this is different than buying a house for mom and dad who can't afford it and wondering whether or not, they're going to keep it, or,
Hmm.
something. It's really just helping them get back on their feet, which may be helping them buy a home, or I guess it could be like tiding them over while they need a place to live, maybe letting them move in with you, which could be a good thing if they have grandkids, right? So it could
Yeah,
be a time of positive memories, good time to gather together with family, but certainly helping to pay bills. And, you know, for some of those folks, they still have to make mortgage payments on that burned off house. So uh maybe there's going to be some relief for that
yeah,
with the mortgage companies.
yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, I like the idea of paying bills too. It
Mhm.
seems kind of small, but in these situations, it's huge. And,
Yeah.
maybe you don't have a liquid six figures that you can save their whole situation, but a lot of times in the beginning, no amount of money feels like it can solve the problem. So you're
Hmm.
scraping together all this cash and maybe making some short-sighted choices about how you
Hmm.
get the cash to them. But basically, if you can bring them into the house, that'd be great. If you can
Hmm.
give them some of your emergency fund, that'd be fine. And then after that, it sounds like it's a more long-term planning situation where maybe you need to give them some monthly money. But there is, some, I guess you could call it relief here,
Hmm.
uh, in that this family's, or the parents here, the mom, if they have a qualified retirement account,
Hmm.
they can withdraw money from this penalty free if they're a part of
Mm.
this kind of disaster.
Okay.
Um, so essentially there's some newer rules out. I'll tell you what they are. So it's qualified individuals can withdraw $22,000 from retirement accounts without the 10% penalty.
Wow.
Okay.
Okay.
Um, you can also, if they're still working, you can, employers are allowed to increase the limit on loans for their qualified accounts. So
Hmm.
there are limits. The limits are small enough to where you probably couldn't buy a house with it, but you're allowed to increase the limit to 100 grand.
Hmm.
And you can extend the repayment on that loan.
Nice.
So things like that aren't necessarily maybe the best long-term solution. But let's
Mhm.
say this oncologist here couldn't scrape together the money fast enough. Will you get a
Mhm.
loan until you can get your parents the money?
Right. And I also have one that I was thinking of here. If that oncologist has appreciated securities, and as an
Mm-hmm.
oncologist in California, they're going to pay a lot of money in capital gains if they sell those securities. But if mom and dad are in a low income tax bracket, it would be possible for that oncologist to give appreciated shares of their securities to mom and dad. And maybe mom and dad are in the 10% capital gains tax bracket, or maybe 15 instead of 20. And so giving those appreciated shares would allow mom and dad to pay the taxes on it instead of the physician.
Mm-hmm.
So that there's an opportunity there. They call that income shifting, and they'd be in a better bracket. And so that would be kind of a tax advantaged gift to help out. And
Yeah,
you could give your folks, I believe that the new limit is at 19,000 for gifting.
I believe it is.
18 or
Yeah.
yeah, 19,000 this year. So that'd be 38,000 that this oncologist could give, and if they're married, they could give another 38,000 to those to that mom or parents.
Mm-hmm.
um, and that would, you know, some a little tax relief, a
Yeah.
little lemonade from a huge lemon.
Yeah. Well, it's lemonade, but it's also like a lot of times people wouldn't think to give them stocks.
Yeah,
And the tax relief is good, but
yeah,
even better is that you probably have money somewhere other than your bank account.
yeah.
And if you're going to give away money, that's a good place to do it. So
Hmm.
we do have clients in California that we may have not heard from, and I hope if they do hear this, that they know they can call so we can try to work through this any
Yeah,
situation
absolutely.
like this.
Yeah.
Okay, on to the next question. This is a family medicine doctor in Washington State.
Okay.
The not-for-profit organization I work for was recently acquired by a for-profit organization. I
Hmm.
have student loans, and I've been counting on PSLF. Is this going to derail my chances of loan forgiveness? If so, what should I do?
Oh, good question.
Yeah. Um, and this was a prospective client, so we don't know their entire situation yet, but
Yeah.
it's important to say that because I'm gonna, I guess, with my answer. So just know that I don't know everything about them.
Now, before we go into the
Mhm.
details, I think that I spoke with someone the other day, and there was still some confusion around PSLF. This woman had like 7 years worth of payments
Yeah.
and was certain she couldn't get PSLF. We went back and forth, and she had a profound misunderstanding of how PSLF worked. And I was confident that she'd get relief and get those debts repaid in just, you know, a matter of years.
Yeah.
So just tell us about the qualifying payments, the full time, all that good stuff. Give us like the basic 3 or 4 rules behind what makes PSLF doable for somebody. What do you got? What do you got to do?
Yeah. So um, essentially, what public service loan forgiveness is if you serve the public. So
Mhm.
a lot of doctors qualify for this because they work for a not-for-profit or a governmental organization.
Okay.
So if you serve the public, non-for-profit, or governmental organization, if you are on an income-driven repayment plan,
Hmm.
and that's step one of the confusion is like, what's that? And
Yeah.
there's several of them. And you make 120 payments while the first of those two things are true,
Hmm.
then you can get your balance forgiven.
And don't you have to be employed full time too, or something?
You have to be employed by what they consider full time, and this is another, there's a lot of details that go into this that are kind of gotchas. But
Hmm.
yes, you have to be employed full time.
Yeah. Okay.
So
And the thing is, some people are like, well, I didn't work for 10 years, or I took a year off to have a baby, or whatever it is, but it's 120 payments. And it doesn't say not without gaps, right?
that's
It could
correct.
be 60 and then 60, or 57 and then the rest, and a little bit more.
That's correct. Yep.
All right.
And by the way, that happens all the time.
Mm,
Just because in your situation you decided to do something like take time off for a baby, and you think I'm making this choice. Well, a lot of people just lose their job for 3 months. They're not
Yeah.
kicked out of PSLF.
Mhm.
So now the question that most physicians should be asking is, does it benefit me?
Mhm.
And that takes a plan.
Mhm.
We do these plans, and I would also say that PSLF has been around long enough now to where if that's the only thing you need,
Mhm.
there are people who only do student loan plans. Like
Yeah.
they do thousands of student loan plans every year, and they're
Yeah.
really sharp. I do it for physicians a lot. Many times physicians do fully understand it. I would
Mhm.
venture to guess that this person you spoke with that had a misunderstanding of the program is in the weeds on what's been going on over the last few years.
Yeah.
And I totally understand, because if you're a client of mine and you've heard me talk about this, there's times where I'm just as in the dark as they are. And
Mhm.
the people that kind of the thought leaders in student loans about this, they're in the dark because I follow them.
Clearly a moving target, right?
Yes, it is frustrating to say the
Yeah.
least. So everybody hang in there, and eventually we'll get some clarity on what we need to do. But if you have questions, if student loans are the reason you're making a big life choice, like where you work or where you live, you need to call me, and we need to talk about
absolutely.
that, because
Absolutely.
the key here is that while you may qualify, there's a good chance you don't benefit, or you don't
Mhm.
benefit by much.
What
So
about our doctor friend in
yeah,
Washington, though?
so this question directly, the reason I said they're not, we don't know their full situation yet, is the first thing that this person should do. So they said, what should I do? My nonprofit got bought out by a for-profit. First thing they need to do is double check that information,
Mhm.
because I hear this all the time. Most of the time, it's not true. Most of the
Mm.
time, they heard something that made it seem like it was for-profit. Something strange happens where they make this assumption that it's a for-profit, but it's actually very difficult. There's unique rules and regulations for a for-profit buying a nonprofit.
Mhm.
So it can happen, but most of the times that I see this, it's not the case.
Okay.
Okay? So I don't know for sure for them, though. So that's step one.
Mhm.
Step two is my kind of preamble here is, make sure that this actually benefits you before you do something big. Make some big change, just big as changing states or even changing jobs so that your kids have to change schools.
Yeah.
Because you really need to get a student loan plan. And what that means is, a lot of times, when you're in residency, PSLF sounds great because your
Mhm.
payments are a couple $100 a month. And so you're on these income-driven plans, and you tell yourself, I'm going to go to do this public service loan forgiveness. I'm going to go work for nonprofit. And then as soon as you get out, you get your big job and your big income. All of a sudden, your payments skyrocket.
Yeah.
And then the question, and usually what happens is, you're like, I have 7 years left on these loans. I want to hold on and work this out and get my loans forgiven. But then you'll
Mhm.
find out that, so the way you actually do this calculation is you say, don't look at your loan balance.
Mhm.
Your loan balance doesn't mean anything for your forgiveness. It's the
Yeah.
total payments you would make over the next
Yeah.
7 years.
Even if those are $1 payments. Right?
Yes. So over the next 7 years, let's say, total amount of payments versus the total payments if you were to refinance. That's when your balance actually matters.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of times where I see a physician, they can save $30,000 or $40,000 if everything goes well, if everything goes right.
Uh-huh.
Is that worth it? Is that worth staying in a state you don't like, or a city you don't like, or a job you
Maybe
don't like,
not.
with a boss you
Yeah.
don't like? Probably not. But
No.
if it's 6 figures and it's a lot of money, then you kind of do need to make it work sometimes.
Yeah.
Family medicine doctors aren't the highest paid physicians that we know, so they do really benefit from even $50,000 or $100,000 in student loan forgiveness.
Yeah.
Okay. If you do benefit, and a for-profit company actually bought a nonprofit company, you need to consider changing jobs.
Yeah. To
And
keep your PSLF, because
yeah.
those payments aren't going to qualify, is what I'm hearing you say.
Exactly, in a for-profit position. And so this is kind of the path I see a lot of physicians go down in their brains. First, they freak out, then we figure it out a little bit, and then we have a choice to make. Are we going to change jobs? And I hear this all the time, Ben. Probably 10 times a year.
Yeah.
I will get a situation will come up, whether it's PSLF or something else, where a physician feels like they need to change jobs, but they seem to think that they can't.
You know what I'm struck by is how quickly physicians will walk away from the prospect of PSLF. I talk with
Yes.
prospective clients on a regular basis, and as I said, there's a profound misunderstanding here, uh, and many of them are like, yeah, I might qualify for PSLF, but I'm not going to bother with that, as if it was, a buy one get one coupon in the local donut store, right?
Yeah.
Like not going to bother with that, and I'm thinking, no, this could be worth $100,000 or $200,000 on an after-tax basis, which for you is like it could be the equivalent of 3 years of earnings without spending. It's like an extra 3 years worth of work. So I think we
Yeah.
need to come to a conclusion on this topic. But
Yeah.
suffice
Well,
it to say, you gotta look at this.
no. Yeah. I'm asking for one more minute here.
Okay,
So,
go ahead.
in Washington specifically, there's a huge shortage of doctor. I mean, I looked this up before the call. Washington is projected to have a shortage of 1,700 family medicine doctors by 2030. And
Wow.
this is something that's going on across the country.
Hmm.
So a lot of physicians, especially the ones that you just talked about, which is like, they're like, well, I have this job. I'm not going to find anything better, so I'm not going to consider going to a nonprofit. I have yet to find someone that couldn't go snap up a job like very easily.
Yeah.
The only time that people make this choice not to change jobs is when they have a very unique specialty, or maybe a situation like their job is offering them to do the exact type of work they want, like
Yeah.
an OB-GYN, but mostly gynecology, and
Got it.
they don't want to give that up.
Okay. So
So,
I'll tell. So listen, if you're listening to this
mhm,
and you have friends that have student loan debt, they need to get on this. And some
mhm.
of them, if they're married and they're physicians and they have kids, they should reach out to us because friends don't let friends blow off PSLF.
Yeah. The final point here for this specific um, listener, the person who asked this question, if you get to step 3 and you're going to change jobs and you have maybe 6 to 12 months before you can make that switch, you
Yeah.
should consider going into forbearance.
Oh,
Because if you're not in forbearance, but you're working for a for-profit, let's say you go 10 months, you're making $2,500 payments, you are throwing $25,000 down the drain
right.
because they're not going to count, and you're just going to start making your qualified payments when you go to the next job.
So you're using the forbearance to preserve your money to make qualifying payments later on.
Yeah, the whole point is if you're dead set on PSLF, you want to pay the least amount you can. And nobody wants to drag this out for 11 years, but in their situation, they're going to have to. So you are just that money is just, you're throwing it in the trash.
Nate, are you passionate about student loan
Yes,
relief?
I am. I am.
I can tell this floats your boat. I mean, you're really good at this, and
Well,
I think there's a lot of wrinkles.
there's a lot of wrinkles, and I'm frustrated, to
Yeah.
be honest. I mean, I'm really frustrated for our clients. I mean, I did this for, I'm at this student loan thing for 7 years here now. And for the first 4, we were just cooking with fire. I'm like, we could do this, is so great. We're going to get all this forgiveness. And then, for many, many reasons, it just, everyone sort of got shafted in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And I'm here to help, but like, we can only help so much. So don't be
Yeah.
giving them money if you don't need to.
Right.
So and for the physicians who say, yeah, but I feel bad, don't. Because
Yeah.
you're serving the public. We need 1,700 more family medicine doctors in Washington.
Yeah.
It's like, this is what we have for you, so please create more physicians. Like, it's
Especially if you're an academician, you're probably making less than you could in the private world, and so you're taking a pay cut. You might as well get the benefit of this because you
exactly
are serving the public.
exactly
The public service
yes,
loan forgiveness
that's right.
exclamation point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Next question. A radiologist in South Carolina. I discovered in January 2025 that an issue with my paycheck deferrals into my employer-sponsored HSA caused my HSA to be underfunded in 2024. Is there a way for me to make a catch-up contribution in the prior year?
You can make a catch-up contribution and a mustard contribution.
That was a dad joke.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So Kyle got this question and he was telling me there's a couple ways to do this. Either contact HR, and then let's see, contact HR and ask if you can make an after-tax contribution to your employer-sponsored HSA. The issue here is you have to work with your back office because you're not going to get a paycheck in 2024. But it's totally possible you can do this.
Yeah.
And he even said, if they don't want to do it, like HR says no, you can go open up a HSA at Fidelity and just go make a contribution for the difference. In a Fidelity, you just want to make sure you don't over contribute.
For tax year 2024, right?
That's right. Make a tax year 2024 contribution.
Yeah, Fidelity, I think Schwab's got them. Lively is one that I think my wife has a HSA at Lively. Yeah, lots of places you can get these HSAs.
Yeah. Yep.
Credit unions. I mean, credit union bank will
Yeah.
have one.
Yeah, they
They
do.
may not pay much at the bank, but yeah, they're easy to open and you can catch that up. And so fundamentals again, health savings account is the very best tax break that a physician has. Period. I mean, tax deduction for putting the money in, okay, tax-free growth, and no taxes on qualified withdrawals. That's just about as good as it's going to get.
So yeah. And people with the where to open these accounts, people assume that HSAs are kind of like, the dependent care FSA.
Yeah, like it's got to go through the employer, like
right,
a 401k or something.
That's what people think. They think
doesn't.
it's a benefit, but you can just go open up an HSA.
Yeah.
And it's on you on whether or not it qualifies. But yeah, you can open these up anywhere.
Yeah, they're not even going to ask if you have health insurance.
That's right.
Yeah, but don't cheat on your taxes, kids. Make sure you have the qualifying high deductible health plan.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, last question. Double doctor family in Colorado. What is the best goal to choose when saving for college?
I think the best goal is a Rocky Mountain High.
That's right. This was a new family that we're serving, and it's funny because they were a referral. We love referrals, by the way, everyone. They were a referral, and they got into what they described as a heated discussion about their college goals at the dinner table with their friends. And I thought, man, I've never heard that one before. People getting
That's a dinner
heated...
that needs more wine.
Yeah. That's right. Well, a plan, I have an answer for this, but the reality is a goal is your goal. What's the best goal? I mean, I don't know. What do you want to pay for?
Yeah.
That's the best goal, is whatever you want to pay for. And less than that is kind of dumb. Like if you know you're going to pay for something, but you save less than that. And it's not dumb just because you won't have the money. It's dumb because you missed out on tax saving.
Okay, I got a possible best goal. Since there's all kinds of best goals. I talked with a college admissions counselor a decade ago, maybe more than that. And we're talking about Ivy League versus public versus private. And she said, it really doesn't matter where your kid goes. It's more important that, it's who they meet and what they do while they're there. She said if they go and they make straight A's and they're not involved and they don't meet anybody, that's a fail at college. So I would say the best college goal is the college that your child can comfortably attend, right? Not one where they're, struggling so hard to get grades that they don't have a balance in their life. One where they're going to feel comfortable so that they can build friendships and connections. One where the professors and they are tuned in, right? One where they're going to bring that child under their wing and introduce them to opportunities, and one where there's all kinds of ways to be involved for them, one that they can be comfortable in. So if your kid's a swimmer, make sure they go to swimming college. If your kid's volleyball and they're not good enough to get a scholarship, you want to take them someplace where they have a strong intramural volleyball program, you
Yeah.
know? Um, if your kids doesn't like the cold, make sure they go someplace warm. I think the best college goal is paying for the full college experience that your child will just absolutely use up and wear out, so that when they come out of there, they're transformed and they're changed by their college experience. They're on fire for learning, and they've met a whole bunch of people. And not only they launched, but they're also launched for that next thing. They're launched for their master's degree or going to med school or some career that they're going to love.
Yeah.
I think that's the best college goal, is to try to not find the college that your kid can get into, but have your kid choose the college that's going to be best for them.
I agree. And, my kids aren't in college, but I did this the wrong way, and I do regret it. I regret about two things in life when it comes to money. I chose school based on how much it cost,
Uh,
so I could get out without student loans. And two was we paid my wife's student loans off too fast,
uh,
meaning we experienced zero life for about 3
yes,
years of marriage. And
yeah,
now, after talking to 1,000 people about money, I realized, if we would have just paid it off in 5 years,
hmm
it wouldn't have been that much different. Like, of course, I hate debt. You heard me talking about student loans. I hate it. I
yeah,
made my college choice based on it. I got into a marriage and sat on our hands for 3 years so that we could get out of it. But if I would have just calmed down and did it in 5 years, that would have
yeah,
been much better. But so for college, I chose based on money, and I did not have a great experience.
yeah,
So I agree with you. The problem is these physicians with young children come to me.
hmm
I'm doing their college planning. They don't know what their kid wants. That's really the root of this question. So I was being a little funny when I said, hey, save for this or that. Like, you should know. You
hmm
don't know what your child's going to choose. So
yeah.
if I have to answer this question, I would say you have no idea, zero idea, save for private school.
There you
And
go.
then here's the reason. Private is roughly the same as public plus something like an MBA.
What's hilarious is one
Mhm.
of my daughters has a friend who is attending Columbia. I mean, like the Columbia, the one in New York, and she's going for the same price as if she went to the U of O.
Wow.
Going to Columbia, right? I
Yeah.
mean, they serve salmon there in the dining hall, right? This kid
Yeah.
calls it rich people food. But yeah, I mean, she's going there, and of course, yeah, she's a stellar kid. She was very involved in high school, excellent writing skills. Yeah, attending Columbia at the same cost as University of Oregon because she's on a scholarship.
Yeah. Yeah. And you just don't know. So I would like, if I could choose a plan for everybody, it would be start with private and adjust as you go.
Yep.
Adjust as you go. You can always stop saving, or you can always raise your saving if you're a little bit behind. Private's a great start.
Yeah, there you go. Good answer. Best goal. What's works for your kids or private, whichever comes first.
Yeah. All
Okay,
right.
so it's time for me to start to take us out here.
That's right.
It is a new year, 2025. It is a new you. It is a new regime. It's a new frontier. Lots of new things. But guess what? 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, you're going to look back and go, what did I do in 2025? What was my life like? How did I get here? And the you right now should be asking the question, how do I get to there? Right? And if you're asking that question, another question is like, how do I pay for it? What do I need to do? And how do I save taxes? And that's what you get when you get a plan. When you get a plan, okay? Our firm charges a one-time fee for a plan that'll answer a lot of those questions for you. So if you're interested in that, you want to kick your new year off right, go to physicianfamily.com, check out our pricing, and then click on the Get Started button. And if you're not ready for that, but you just want to see, like, how am I doing for retirement? Go take our retirement well check. That's at physicianfamily.com/quiz. And until next time, remember, you're not just making a living, you're making a life.
Thank you for listening to the Physician Family Financial Advisors podcast. Are you getting all the tax breaks you really deserve? To find out, get your copy of the Overtaxed Doctor's Retirement Investing Checklist, available at physicianfamily.com/go. This show is for educational purposes only and is not personalized advice. Consult your tax advisor before taking action. All investments involve risk of loss. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. Read show notes for full disclosure.